Welcome, and thank you for your interest in the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project. This project is presented by Caltrans in cooperation with the City of Paso Robles and Upper Salinas Las Tablas Resource Conservation District. This video will provide information on the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project, which fulfills mitigation requirements for the Route 46 Corridor Improvement Project. We appreciate your interest in this project and welcome your comments and feedback. Due to the CDC guidelines, the project website and this video presentation has been prepared and will provide the same information as an in-person presentation. In addition, multiple options are available for you to provide your comments and feedback, which will be shared later in this video. In accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of its programs and activities, and that services and benefits are fairly distributed to all people. In addition, Caltrans will facilitate meaningful participation in the transportation planning process in a non-discriminatory manner. Caltrans Title VI policies and a voluntary survey are found on the project website by clicking on the Title VI tab. The purpose of this video presentation has four primary goals. 1. To inform the public of the project background and current status. 2. To describe the project and potential impacts so the public can determine how they may be affected. 3. Provide information on how to submit your comments and feedback on the draft environmental document. And 4. To develop a record of public outreach and participation. I will now briefly describe the project background for the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project and the current status of the Route 46 Corridor Improvement Project. Centennial Creek is located in Paso Robles near Highway 101 and Niblick Road. The proposed Centennial Creek Mitigation Project will provide off-site mitigation that is required for the Route 46 Corridor Improvement Project. This project is a 30-mile section of Route 46 that runs from the city of Paso Robles to the Route 41 to 46 junction near Cholam. The goal of the Route 46 Corridor Improvement Project is to widen the roadway to convert the two-lane highway into a four-lane expressway, and also includes other intersection and bridge improvements within these project limits. Construction of the Union segment, the Whitley 1, and the Whitley 2A and 2B segments have already been completed. Construction for the Cholam segment will begin in 2022, and the Y segment is currently in the design phase. The purpose of the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project is to restore stream function and value at Centennial Creek by creating, enhancing, and reestablishing approximately 4 acres of wetlands and other waters to satisfy state and federal mitigation requirements. The project is needed because the Route 46 Corridor Improvement Project will cause unavoidable impacts to aquatic resources and mitigation is required. On-site mitigation has been maximized within the Route 46 right-of-way, and additional off-site acreage is required. All outstanding off-site mitigation from all sections of the Route 46 Corridor Improvement Project can be accommodated by the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project. A total of 3.82 acres of wetlands and other waters will be restored, enhanced, or established at Centennial Creek during Phase 1. Which slightly exceeds the mitigation requirements of 3.77 acres. A second phase will allow for an additional third of an acre of other waters restoration for future mitigation needs. I will now briefly describe the project and potential environmental impacts. Centennial Creek is a small direct tributary to the Salinas River and winds its way through an open space corridor surrounded by an urbanized portion of Paso Robles. Centennial Creek is surrounded by a community center, recreational facility, 3 schools, and several housing developments. The mitigation project runs along Centennial Creek for 6,300 feet and begins upstream at the end of Lana Street and extends downstream to South River Road. A paved bike and walking path follows much of the creek within the project limits. Culvert crossings were previously constructed in locations where the path intersects the creek. These undersized culverts, combined with a high degree of impervious surface in the stream's urbanized watershed, contribute to the creek's incision and scour. Flashy flows that result from impervious surfaces cause water to flow through the system very quickly, missing opportunities for filtration of pollutants, settlement of sediments, and infiltration that recharges shallow groundwater. These systems often become impacted by erosion, and the surrounding vegetation communities become disconnected from shallow groundwater that is important for sustaining growth through the dry season. Additionally, valley oak woodland comprises portions of the creek corridor, and several large oaks have recently fallen into the creek as a result of erosion and incision along the banks of the creek. The project includes a combination of improvements to the creek which will all work together. Grading is proposed to widen the narrow creek channel into shallower floodplain benches and develop roughened riffles. This will be discussed more on the following slides. Undersized culverts and associated hardscaping, rock, or rubble concrete will be removed and replaced with appropriately sized culverts in 2 locations along Centennial Creek. In some locations, existing concrete rubble piles and debris will be removed and replaced with engineered stream bed material. Due to the incised creek channel, grading will be required to develop flood benches, as shown in this cross-section. The floodplain benches will widen the narrow creek channel and create secondary channels and pools. The grading will also increase wetland and riparian areas to restore connection with the active floodplain, provide nutrient retention, groundwater recharge, floodwater storage, and wildlife habitat. A series of approximately 40 roughened riffles will be installed along the creek. Roughened riffles are an engineered stream bed with materials such as rocks that are placed to promote a pool or riffle system to prevent further head cutting, reverse incision, and slow erosion. This photo shows an example of a roughened riffle system. Here is a diagram of a cross-section of a roughened riffle. The roughened riffles will work in tandem with the grading and vegetation improvements to slow the velocity of water. These treatments will improve habitat and water quality and increase flood capacity. The improvements to the infrastructure will be followed by an extensive planting plan with a variety of native species to create vegetation structure and increase plant diversity and habitat quality. These species include, but are not limited to, Fremont cottonwood, red willow, toyonberry, sugarbush, deergrass, California rose, valley oak, and blue oak. A plant establishment period will span 3 years. It will be followed by a monitoring period of 7 years for a total of 10 years after planting to ensure the project meets agency success criteria. Project design, implementation, maintenance, and monitoring will be the responsibility of the Upper Salinas Las Tablas Resource Conservation District through funding provided from Caltrans. Caltrans will also establish an endowment to ensure that the project site is monitored and maintained in perpetuity. The property will remain under the ownership of the City of Paso Robles as a designated open space element, with the site protected by a conservation easement. Technical studies conducted by Caltrans concluded that with the implementation of appropriate avoidance and minimization measures, the project would not substantially degrade the quality of the environment. Overall, it was determined that the project will instead enhance the quality of the biological and aquatic resources within the Centennial Creek corridor. Caltrans intends to adopt a negative declaration under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and a categorical exclusion under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Although it was determined that the project would result in no significant impacts to the environment, it was found that the project may cause temporary construction impacts, which could include the following. To ensure public safety, public access to the bike and walking path may be limited, as heavy equipment will be used within the project area. The Resource Conservation District and the city will work closely together to provide notice and signs in advance of closures and identify detours. The closures would be intermittent. Construction equipment may increase noise levels during the day. To minimize temporary noise impacts, standard noise control measures and thresholds will be adhered to during construction. The project may cause short-term construction emissions and dust resulting from the use of heavy equipment during construction. These impacts will be temporary, and the contractor would be required to comply with applicable air pollution control prevention measures. Tree trimming or removal and ground disturbing activities may disrupt wildlife during construction. However, the contractor will be required to conduct wildlife surveys before construction to ensure there are no species present before tree trimming or ground disturbing activities. Grading during construction has the potential to impact state and federal waters. Ground disturbance will be limited to the dry season to minimize impacts, and stormwater pollution prevention measures will be implemented during construction. You may view the draft environmental document by visiting the project website under the Environmental Document tab and clicking on the icon. A hard copy of the draft environmental document is also available at the Caltrans District 5 office. There are 3 ways to submit your comments. You may complete the electronic comment card on the Centennial Creek Project website under the Submit Comments tab and filling out the online form. You may also submit comments by email or postal service to the attention of Jason Wilkinson, Environmental Branch Chief, as instructed on the project website. Comments must be submitted by the deadline of September 17, 2021. After the public comment period closes, Caltrans will review comments and address them in the final environmental document. We anticipate the final environmental document will be released around November of this year. Engineering and final design is expected to be complete around the same time. The Upper Salinas Las Tablas Resource Conservation District and the City of Paso Robles will hold a public outreach workshop at Centennial Creek next year prior to construction. We estimate Phase 1 construction to start next summer and expected to span approximately 7 months. If you still have questions regarding the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project, you can contact Jason Wilkinson, Environmental Branch Chief, by voicemail, email, or postal service at the contact methods outlined on this slide. Thank you for your interest in the Centennial Creek Mitigation Project. Your interest and participation are appreciated. We look forward to receiving your comments and feedback.